Hello students, in the second class of micturition, we'll with cystometry is one of the urodynamic studies. That means study of the function of the urinary bladder. And in this study, we record the intravesical pressure and volume of the urinary bladder by inserting a catheter in the urinary bladder. The cystometry can be done by two methods. One is the voiding cystometry, when recording is done during micturition or voiding of urine, and second one is static cystometry, where we insert a catheter within the bladder, then drain the bladder completely, and then insert fluid from outside into the urinary bladder while we record the pressure changes in the bladder. By cystometry, we obtain cystometrogram. What is cystometrogram? Now, it is a plot of intravesical pressure on the y-axis against the volume of fluid in the bladder in the x-axis. So, it is a graphical representation of intravesical pressure and volume of the urine within the bladder, which is called cystometrogram. Now, this cystometrogram has three phases. So, as we know, in a micturition cycle, there are basically two phases. One is called filling phase and another is voiding phase. So, like that, in cystometrogram, two phases basically. One is filling phase and another is voiding phase. Again, the filling phase has two parts. So, first phase is called phase 1A. Now, this phase 1A, what happens? You can see from 0, gradually or slowly there is increment of the intravesicular pressure as well as increment of the intravesicular volume. So, from 0, pressure changes nearly up to 10 centimeter of water while there is filling of the urinary bladder with 50 ml of fluid or urine. So, this is the initial phase, or it is called also 1A. So, initial filling phase. This is the second phase, which is called 1B phase or second phase, second filling phase. So, in this phase, in 1B, that lasts till the bladder is full volume. So, there is gradual increment of the volume of the urinary vesicles or bladder, but almost no change in the pressure of the urinary wall. And here, when the pressure volume is ever nearly 150 ml, there is a fast urge of micturition, and then again there is further accumulation of urine if we don't void, if the circumstances does not persist, or if we don't desire to void, we can hold micturition here and continue accumulating urine or filling of the bladder without changing the pressure. Then at the point of nearly accumulation of 400 ml of fluid or urine within the bladder, there is huge rise in the intravesicular pressure almost with no further change of the volume. So, this is the third phase where there is sharp rise of the pressure with little rise in the volume, and this is called phase 2, and it is the voiding phase. So, in voiding phase, you can see there is a sharp rise in pressure because of starting of contraction of the detrusor muscle in the voiding phase, which rises pressure to nearly 30 centimeter of water. So, these are the three different phases of cystometrogram. 1A early filling phase, then 1B late filling phase, then the voiding phase or phase 2. Very frequent question comes in your MBBS examination is that explanation, or how can we justify the flatness of the segment 1B in the cystometrogram, where there is accumulation of urine, there is increase in the volume in the urinary bladder, but without change in pressure in the urinary wall. Now, other than the smooth flaccidity of the plasticity of the smooth muscle and the mucosa of urothelium, it can be explained by law of Laplace. So in several areas of physiology, we apply the law of Laplace. It is one of them. What is law of Laplace? It says in a spherical, the pressure within the spherical is equal to the twice the tension in the wall divided by the radius of that spherical. So P equal to the pressure, T is the wall tension and R is the radius. Now during filling, when urine is accumulating within the urinary bladder, it will give rise to increase in the tension of the urinary wall. As there is increase in the tension in the urinary wall or numerator is increasing, it's supposed to increase the pressure within the bladder. But in 1B segment, there is no such increment of the pressure because, or it is only possible if the denominator or the radius also increase. So, if there is increment of both tension and radius, the P remain constant during this 1B phase of cystometrogram. So, the tension increases as the organ fills, but so does the radius. Increment of both tension and radius. Therefore, the pressure increases slight until the organ is relatively full. So, at when the cystometrogram reaches the phase of 2, then as the bladder is almost full, there is no chance of further increment of the radius. But as it is filling, it is increasing the wall tension and there is huge increase in the pressure of the urinary bladder. Okay. Next is the cystometry. Now, cystometry is done to ascertain the following bladder functions. What is the utility of doing cystometry? What we can learn by doing cystometry? So, by cystometry, we know the bladder capacity. So, it is the bladder volume at which voiding is irresistible. And we know normally it is 400 or 500 ml. So by doing cystometry, we can measure whether the bladder capacity is normal, low or higher. Next is accommodation. Now accommodation is the ability of the bladder to accommodate large volume of urine without significant rise in the pressure. Normally the bladder pressure remains almost constant during the filling phase or 1B phase of the cystometry. Next is the bladder sensation. So this enables the perception of bladder fullness. The first sensation comes at the volume of nearly 150 ml, whereas the definite sense of fullness comes at the volume of nearly 350 to 450 or roughly 400 ml of accumulation of urine. Next, by cystometry, we can also know about the bladder contraction. So bladder contraction is assessed from the ability to the bladder to contract when they full. So whether the bladder is contracting at the 400 ml of accumulation of urine or it is not contracting, bladder is not contracting or it is contracting at a lower volume or the bladder is overactive. Next, other parameters like voluntary bladder control. Now, voluntary bladder control is the ability to initiate voiding even before filling is complete. So, voluntarily. Or inhibit voiding till the bladder capacity is maximum or holding the micturition. And ability to stop voiding during midstream of micturition. So, all these features we can know by doing cystometry, which is one of urodynamic study or study of the bladder functions like the bladder capacity, accommodation, bladder sensation, bladder contraction and voluntary bladder control. Next is the abnormal bladder function, which is also called neurogenic bladder. So any bladder dysfunction caused by disease of nervous systems, the nervous system which regulates the bladder function is called neurogenic bladder. So neurogenic bladder we can divide into 5 different types. So first of all, if there is interruption of the afferent nerves from the bladder. So we know micturition reflex is a spinal reflex which is heavily influenced by the supraspinal centers. So if there is interruption of the afferent nerve, obviously the micturition reflex will lost or abolish. So that will hamper normal micturition. And if this type of condition where there is defect in the afferent nerve, this type of bladder or neurogenic bladder is called sensory paralytic bladder. So there is loss of sensation. Here the bladder become distended with loss of sensation. Urine is coming and accumulating within the bladder, but the sensation of accumulation or the stress receptor sensation will not be conveyed. So there will be no detrusor contraction as the reflex is not there. Gradually there will be more accumulation of bladder. Bladder will be distended. It will be thin wall and it will be hypotonic because of distension. Now, second type of abnormality is interruption of the efferent nerve to the bladder. So, like the afferent nerve, if the efferent nerve is also damaged or destructed, the micturition reflex will be abolished or damaged or absent. And this type of defect is called motor paralytic bladder. Like the sensory paralytic bladder, in motor paralytic bladder there is loss of micturition reflex, urine will be accumulated, and but here what happens? Few things difference occurs from the sensory paralytic bladder. Here the sensation of bladder fullness is present. Sensation is present but the contraction is absent as the micturition reflex is abolished. And as there is motor paralysis or efferent nerve damage, there is denervation hypersensitivity, and that denervation hypersensitivity causes hypertrophy of the bladder wall, which gives rise to shrunken and hypertrophied bladder with residual urine because normal detrusor contraction is absent. Now the third category is the interruption of both afferent and efferent nerve. Now this occurs if there is any pathology in the sacral segment of spinal cord on that area. What are that area? S2, S3, S4. So any tumor, any cut injury in this area in the sacral segment of the spinal cord, that will disrupt both afferent and efferent nerves. And in this type of neurogenic bladder, it is also called autonomous bladder or detrusor areflexic bladder. So the bladder again, because there is efferent cut here, so there will be denervation hypersensitivity, which will give rise to hypertrophied bladder wall, and bladder will become shrunken with residual urine. Now in all these three types of bladder defect, whether it is the sensory paralytic or afferent defect, whether it is motor paralytic or efferent defect, or it is both afferent defect, which is also called autonomous or detrusor defect, micturition reflex is damaged or abolished. So these are called areflexic bladder. So these three categories altogether are areflexic neurogenic. On the other hand, any damage above the sacral center in the suprasacral centers, that will causes intactness of the micturition reflex. So if in interruption in anywhere above the sacral area, in the pons, in the midbrain, in the cortex, that will causes the reflex will be there, and this is called reflex neurogenic bladder. So interruption of facilitatory or inhibitory pathway give rise to reflex neurogenic bladder. And this reflex neurogenic bladder we can further divide into two portions. So one is the infrapontine suprasacral lesion. Lesion anywhere between the sacral region and the pons. So this is the infrapontine suprasacral lesion, which is also called automatic bladder. What happened here? There is neurogenic detrusor overactivity with detrusor sphincter dyssynergia. So in this type of neurogenic bladder, the bladder becomes spastic. So like any other upper motor neuron lesion, here also the bladder becomes spastic and hypertrophic and small. In addition, as the pons synchronize the contraction of the detrusor and relaxation of the sphincter, and as it is lesion below the pons, this synchronization or reciprocal innervation of the pons in detrusor and sphincter is hampered. So there is a dyssynergia, means detrusor is contracting while the external sphincter is also in contracted state. So this is called detrusor sphincter dyssynergia. See, it occurs in infrapontine suprasacral lesion, which is also called automatic bladder. Now the last category, which is also again the suprasacral, but here the suprapontine lesion. So lesion which is inhibiting the cortical inhibition, and that's why it is called uninhibited bladder. Inhibition from the cerebral cortex is inhibited. So it is uninhibited bladder, and it is called also neurogenic detrusor overactivity. So this detrusor sphincter dyssynergia, which is mainly done by the pons, is not hampered here, because here the lesion is above the pons from the in the cerebral cortex. So here the bladder size tone is normal with no residual urine. So these are the 5 basic category of neurogenic bladder, of which we will have detailed discussion of. So first is the flaccid neuropathic bladder. So we already discussed, when there is denervation in the sensory neuron, it gives rise to flaccid neuropathic bladder, and which is also called atonic bladder. It is flaccid or atonic, same. So it results from deafferentation of the bladder. So there is destruction of the afferent nerve, and it occurs in condition like tabes dorsalis. Already discussed, tabes dorsalis is a condition in syphilis infection where it affects the posterior column of the spinal cord, and we know the stress receptors or fibers for the stress sensation goes from the dorsal column. So it is affecting the tabes dorsalis or dorsal column. Also conditional syringomyelia, which affect the dorsal column, have these types of bladder, which is flaccid neuropathic bladder. Obviously there is absence of micturition reflex as the afferent nerve is cut here, and the bladder is flaccid. Why it is flaccid? There is absence of micturition reflex, absence of sense of fullness of the bladder. Bladder is coming and accommodating, and that causes more and more retention of the urine within the bladder, and the bladder wall become distended and flaccid, and after a certain limit of retention of urine, there is overflow, incontinence of urine. The bladder always remain full as there is loss of the reflex, loss of the detrusor contraction, and the bladder always remain full with overflow, incontinence, and there is loss of sensation and residual urine is high. The intravesical pressure here is low. It is atonic, flaccid, so the pressure is low. The bladder wall is thin and distended. Flaccid neuropathic bladder. So here there is cut in the lesion in the chorda equina. So cutting the sensory fiber here supposed to go to the sacral S2, S3, S4, and from there this is the center for micturition reflex, and from here motor nerve supply the detrusor and the sphincter muscles. So there is sensation is cut, fluid is accumulating, no detrusor contraction, and after some times it becomes thin wall, atonic or flaccid, and there is overflow, incontinence in flaccid neuropathic bladder. Next is the hypertrophic areflexive bladder. So it could be due to motor effect, or more commonly in case of denervation of both the afferent and efferent nerve, like tumor of the chorda equina or filum terminalis, or any cut injury in the sacral area. So in this case there is lesion in the sacrum of S2, S3, S4 affecting this neuron S2, S3, S4 of the spinal cord. So what happens? As already discussed, it is also called autonomous bladder or decentralized bladder. Here again is abolition of micturition reflex. So this is also a reflexive neurogenic bladder. Abolition or absence of micturition reflex blood. What happened here? Initially the bladder is flaccid. Why? Because of neuropathic type affection. Subsequently, as time goes on, detrosar develop denervation hypersensitivity. So because of denervation hypersensitivity, the muscles pushed to the motor nerve develop, become hypertrophic, and as a result it becomes small and hypertrophic, unlike the flaccid neuropathic where it is distended and atonic. Here it is small and hypertrophic. Both are areflexive, whether the flaccid or hypertrophic, both are areflexive. Here the intravesical pressure is high. But the bladder never void reflexly because reflex is absent here but always remain full. So this is the second category, or hypertrophic or areflexive bladder or decentralized bladder or autonomous bladder. Now this is the hypertrophy of the detrosor muscle. Because of denervation hypersensitivity, the detrosor muscle become hypertrophic and it causes increase in the pressure, gradually decreasing the size, but there is remain in the residual volume as there is no reflex contraction of the detrosor muscle. Now the third category is the spastic neuropathic bladder or automatic bladder. So when the lesion is above the sacral area, so sacral micturition center is isolated from the suprasacral centers or the brain. So in this condition, this spastic neuropathic bladder or automatic bladder occurs. It occurs in spinal cord transection or in the any brain stroke, which is called cerebral hemorrhage or cerebrovascular accident. What happens? Again here immediately there is evolution of micturition reflex due to spinal shock, resulting in flaccid neuropathic bladder which gives rise to overflow incontinence, but this is very temporary. When the shock will go away, the overflow incontinence will also go away, voiding reflex will return. Here, as it is cut from the brain, from the cortex, from the pons and midbrain, so no voluntary control, no inhibition or no facilitation from higher centers. But unlike the two category, here the reflex is present or rather exaggerated. So the supraspinal center mainly have a inhibitory effect. So in the absence of supraspinal inhibition, the micturition reflex is exaggerated here. And this exaggerated reflex causes sustained contraction of the detrosor muscle, result in spasticity. So this is also called spastic neuropathic bladder. So as the voiding reflex becomes hyperactive, bladder capacity is reduced and the wall become hypertrophic. The micturition reflex is triggered whenever the bladder is distended. So even at a lower volume, so normal volume is the 400 ml, even here the normal volume is 150 or 200 ml of volume, it gives rise to contraction of the detrosor muscle. So resulting in urgency, immediately move for voiding. Here we already discussed sphincter spasticity and detrosor sphincter dyssynergia because of loss of reciprocal innervation or inhibition of the pons, which causes reciprocal inhibition. That means contraction of the detrosor. During the contraction of detrosor, there will be relaxation of the sphincter muscle. So this coordination will be lost in this condition and that leads to detrosor hypertrophy and high voiding pressure in spastic neuropathic bladder, automatic bladder. So in automatic bladder what happens? So this is the micturition reflex, spinal reflex, which is influenced by the supraspinal center. Here the supraspinal inhibition is cut. So this micturition reflex become exaggerated and what happens as the pons control the reciprocal innervation, means contraction or detrusor causes relaxation of the sphincter muscle. Here, during contraction of the detrusor muscle, the sphincter also remain contracted. So basically bladder is contracting, pressure is rising, but the passage is closed. The urethra is not open to pass the urine. So this is detrusor sphincter dyssynergia. So you can see this is the normal bladder which start contraction when it becomes full of 400 ml urine, but in overactive bladder or spastic neuromotor bladder or automatic bladder, the detrusor contraction started even at lower volume of urine. So that is clear from cystometry. Normally this is the 400 ml, there is rise in the pressure, but in overactive bladder even accumulation of 200 ml of urine give rise to the detrusor pressure of 30 centimeter of water. So that is about spastic neuropathic bladder. These are the different types of neurogenic bladder. So this is the normal bladder. This is the spastic bladder when the lesion is above the sacral spinal level. This is the spastic type of bladder. It is spastic, tone increases, accelerated reflex. On the other hand, it is the flaccid bladder when the destruction is below the spinal cord level and when the lesion is exactly on the S2, S3, S4, which gives rise to areflexic, no absence of reflex, but hypertrophic bladder because of denervation, hypersensitivity to detrusor hypertrophy. Next is the urinary incontinence or the loss of bladder control. So urinary incontinence may be of three different types: overflow incontinence, stress incontinence, or urge incontinence. In overflow incontinence, what happens as in flaccid neuropathic bladder or condition like obstruction, urinary stone or urethral stone or benign hypertrophy of prostate, so the passage is closed or it is the contraction is absent. There will be more and more accumulation of urine. After a certain limit, there will be overflow and it is called overflow incontinence. Second is the stress incontinence. Here, the intra-abdominal pressure somehow may be more or the sphincter muscle may be weak. So, sudden increase in the intra-abdominal pressure causes dribbling of urine. Like in pregnancy, increase in intra-abdominal pressure or weak sphincter muscle after operation, so removal of prostate, or in female after removal of the uterus. So this perineal muscle become weak. So external urethral sphincter and the pelvic floor muscle become weak, and so in the high intra-abdominal pressure there is dribbling of urine during coughing or sneezing. So that is called stress incontinence. Third is the urge incontinence. Now there is less time, or when you feel there is fullness of bladder, you cannot hold the bladder further. So huge rise of detrusor pressure immediately. So these occurs in spastic neuropathic bladder, which is called overactive bladder, and also in condition like urinary tract infection. So UTI sensitivity become more and it gives rise to urge incontinence. So these are three different types of incontinence: overflow incontinence, stress incontinence, and urge incontinence. So that's all for micturition, and here you end your explanatory classes. See you in next class. Thank you.